96.1 FM Abuja. A very beautiful afternoon to you. Thursday, the first day in the month of June 2023. Happy new month to you and yours. And how was your journey commuting to work today or commuting, around town generally? I personally encountered a lot of traffic. I still haven't gotten a very clear understanding as for why I would be encountering so much traffic on a Thursday within Abuja. But then, we know what is going on in the country at the moment, and we're just going to get on with it. This is Matters on Voice of the People 96.1 FM Abuja. On Matters, we discuss issues that that affect everyday life, especially in Nigeria, cutting across every sect. Yes, this is where there is nothing that is untouchable. Welcome to Matters. And of course, my name is Chinwe Blessing. We're going to get into the first segment of Matters today, World Rounds. Let's begin with the matter that is on the minds of every single person in the country. NNPC yesterday confirmed petrol price hike. The Nigerian National Petrol Company Limited has confirmed it adjusted pump prices from premium motor spirit, known better as petrol, across the country. In a statement that was issued yesterday, Wednesday, the 31st of May 2023, and signed by its Chief Corporate Communications Officer, Garba Din Mohammed, the National Oil Company explained that the adjusted pump price was in line with current market realities. Now, you would notice that the hike in pump price of petrol is to over 500 naira per liter, depending on the location of purchase. To discuss this, navigating the official fuel price hike and whether it's a smooth transition or not for Nigerians, I have with me in the studio a political economist, Adefolarin Olamilekon. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon to our listeners out there.
A very good afternoon to you too. Before we start, to talk about these issues, I would like to know, how was commuting for you today?
Quite, how will I even put it? Because even you yourself, you find it difficult to even say a word or to align to a word on how your experience was. And for me, it was quite, it wasn't a new experience, because if from the area I'm coming from, we always expect a hike in price of transportation from that end of Marabat, Massacre coming to the city center. So today's zone was like, we expect it. So I just have to flow with it. But for other colleagues of mine that were coming together, they were like, no, why will you charge such amount? And it was like, the reality is that there is a change in pump price of BMS as we speak today in Nigeria.
Okay. I spoke just before coming on air with one of the salespeople that was attending to me where I went to have lunch or brunch, so to speak, considering it's still early in the day. And she said what would usually cost her about 150 naira cost. No, she said 250 naira. It cost her 500 naira today. And I also heard other people saying, oh, they are experiencing a surge up to 3 times what they are used to paying coming into the country, moving from one part of the city to another part of the federal capital. So now, this is all because of the fuel subsidy that has been removed.
Exactly.
We've been on this journey for about 12 years now,
Definitely.
trying to get here, and now it has finally happened. But a lot of Nigerians, if we check it, don't even understand what subsidy is.
Exactly.
So let's start by briefly explaining what subsidy is and how it functions in an economic context.
I think simply subsidy has to do with means subsidization. And when we talk about subsidy, it's an economic term that explains that a particular price of particular goods cannot be afforded by the people, then you subsidize it. That means subsidization. I mean, if the price is 20 naira, you now say, okay, pay 10 naira, then the other half of the 10 naira, you pay for it. That's what subsidization means. But in Nigerian context, in oil and gas context, most of us are not coming to the reality of it since 1999. But during the military era, it has always been there. But it wasn't this pronounced. And I will take us a memory lane back. We had 4 refineries, and they were all performing at the optimum level at a particular time. Then in the late 90s, they started fumbling. That means they started going down because of lack of maintenance. then at that point we started lacking supply of PMS in Nigeria, because before then we are not importing PMS. We consume what we produce and refine by ourselves. But the moment those refineries started having challenges, that was the period when we now begin to see need to import PMS into Nigeria. And even when the refinery went through the maintenance system that the government introduced, it wasn't giving us the best optimum, because that was the period that, if you hear, Nigeria was processing about 400,000 barrels of crude oil. Then all the four refineries put together. But the time came, they could not refine even up to 100,000. So that was the beginning and the challenge of fuel subsidy, that we begin to import fuel into Nigeria. And then in 1999, between 1999 and 2007, the Obasanjo regime also tried as much as possible to introduce this particular and make it happen. But if you remember, what really happened was that the majority of the unions, they opposed it. But at the end of the day, the price increased. But it wasn't this much that we have found ourselves today. Then late 2010, 2012, when the price now jacked up to 97 naira, then before, people rejected it also. But by 2015, it was increased to about 125, then 135. Then by 2020, it begins to goes up to 150, 160. Before 2023, that we now ended up at 195, which is the official price of PMS. But just as your question I pointed, what is it all about subsidy? Across the globe, across the world, subsidy is one of the system of cushioning the effect of any economic hardship among the people, especially for the vulnerable groups in the society. The US also makes use of subsidy. The UK, all the developed countries that I say, they make use of subsidy in the sense that they subsidize certain items, certain services for their people, because they know that globally there is what they call international transfer of prices of goods and services. Just like the oil and gas sector, you know, the price is not determined by Nigeria. It is always transfer. It is the price determined by international market that come back to us, and government have to find a way to cushion the effect, and that's why we have subsidy. Even in the pension aspect, there's subsidy in the pension. That's why I see that they will say contribution scheme. You contribute a particular amount, the government contribute a particular amount. It's also subsidy. But in our own balance, why subsidy become like a monster to Nigerians that they don't want to hear about subsidy was that the inefficiency in the oil and gas sector made it so difficult for Nigerians to understand what is subsidy. That's why I see that somebody will be calling subsidization, all manner. They just try to comic a word to comic that particular
I mean, that's
word.
very common with Nigerians. We try to make fun of every situation, regardless of how difficult it is. Now, it is safe to say that one of the major challenges of the oil and gas sector in Nigeria is the absence of refineries. Because there was a time when we had refineries up to about 4 of them.
Yes.
What were the challenges that our refineries faced? At what point did we start to face this challenges, and what have we done to try to salvage it? Because now subsidy has been removed, has this refinery problem been fixed? Because this is where it started getting bad, when the refineries got bad.
I think to answer this question is going to be a two-party. Now, when do we start having challenges with the refinery? The last refinery, the one in Kaduna, was built in 1983. That was the last that was built in 1983. Between that time period that all of them were existing, from 1983 to early 90s, there was no, we normally accuse ourselves as Nigerians that we lack maintenance culture, and that's what really happened to this refinery. There was no opportunity whereby government now tried as much as possible to change some of the obsolete equipment in the machinery in that refinery and bring it up to date. They didn't do that, or they were doing it, but they are not doing it the way it's supposed to be. Then secondly was that, successive government that came into power, there is this opportunity in 1999 that Nigerians must become a democratic state. And becoming a democratic state, we choose a path of capitalist democratic state. People must understand it. And when we choose the path of capitalist democratic state, what does it mean? We are going to allow orthodox economic principles, World Bank, IMF economic principles to come in. That's if you still remember back to Obasanjo period, there was what they call rationalization, downsizing of workers. It started from that period, and what it means is that government must remove its hand from certain sector of the economy, and one of them was that the oil and gas sector. Not up to just last year that we now had the PIA, Petroleum Industrial Act. If you remember, several documents have been brought out that we must deregulate the oil and gas sector. What does it mean? Government must remove its hand from fixing price, controlling, and even dictating how that sector must move. And these are the things that brought about the level that we are today. We're talking about removal of subsidy. Remember that I said what killed the refineries was that there was lack of maintenance culture. Then the other aspect was that the government will now enter democratic system. The capitalist democratic for them now shows that governments must hand off its hand from certain sector of the economy and allow private sector to come in. If you still remember in history of Nigeria, I'm talking about contemporary history of Nigeria between 1999 and date, government gave out licenses to people to build refineries. But where are the people? Just one of them built. Apart from Modular Refinery, they will also give licenses in the late 2015 to start building. About 8 of them are existing right now. 2 in Bayelsa, 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Benin, 1 in Imo, and I think there's another one around Edo. Also, there's one with Modular Refinery, and also one in Delta. These are the opportunity for the private sector to also invest in refining product. But alas, the challenge, even though government have somehow through the PIA deregulate the sector, we are still having a challenge of how to ensure that the sector satisfy ordinary Nigerians. Because as far as it's concerned, the oil and gas sector only satisfy the players in that sector, not the ordinary citizen. If you want to understand what I'm trying to say in this particular, just look at the cooking gas experience. There is no subsidy in cooking gas, but the price keep fluctuating. And we have an energy, Nigerian liquefied natural gas, that produce gas 100%, but just want to export the gas. And when you export 70% of what you produce, it gives us local consumption 30%. And that 30% cannot cater for the needs of the people in the country. So what do we embark on? We started importing gas. So right now there's importation of cooking gas in Nigeria. Just like we also have the importation of PMS. We also have the importation of kerosene. We also have the importation of diesel. Why? Because our refineries are broken down.
So you have made mention of the fact that government has created, they put in measures that would make these refineries work, sort of some kind of private-public partnership in a way. But we have these refineries existent, but they are not functional. Why would they not? What is stopping them from being functional?
I think critically, when presently, before now, the government tried as much as possible to go into public-private partnership that you mentioned, but the unions kick against it. NLC, TUC, Pengasan, Nupen, all of them, all the unions in the oil and gas sector kick against it. That there is no need for the government to privatize the 4 refineries. There is no need for them to, because the mind of the government is to sell those refineries, and they say no, don't sell it. That is our national asset. If you remember, late 2012 to 2015, there was this opportunity that government want to sell assets, especially in 2016. If you remember that Nigeria went into recession in 2016, and there was this debate that the only way we can rescue ourselves from the recession that happened between 2015, 2016 and 2017 was to sell some national assets. And the 4 refineries were also listed to be sold, but the union kick against it. Then when government also went into partnership, that want to go into partnership, let some private people, let us conscientize, that means give it out to people to manage. The union kick against it. Now it has been abandoned. 3 of them have been abandoned, but 1 is undergoing refurbishment. But that one that is undergoing refurbishment, there has been issues with when to deliver. It was last year April that NNPC said they would deliver it, but that they have shifted the goalpost till this year. And this year they say April also. Now they have shifted the goalpost till like August. So we don't know when the Port Harcourt refinery will be open for production. But everybody is looking at the Dangote refinery, and that is where the mind of the government is and the people.
Is one refinery, is it capable of catering to the fuel needs of Nigerians?
Let's even examine the Dangote refinery itself. It's going to be cracking 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day. Nigerian consumption is between 50 to 60 million per day. Although the data is not too correct, because we have not done that empirical data that will give us the actual consumption of how we consume PMS. But if ordinarily, if you go to a filling station, you can count how many cars of a car that enter a particular filling station. You can also count how many gallons that enter a particular filling station. You can also know that truly we could be consuming such amount of PMS in Nigeria. But Dangote refinery has its market target, not Nigeria, the West African coast, Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Senegal. Those are the target. That's why when the commission, you see all the about 10 West African presidents came for the commission, because those are the target. Now we are consuming 50 to 60 million, and it's going to be cracking about 650 barrel of crude oil, and a barrel of crude oil only give you 150 liter. If you do the mathematics, it runs into some thousands, into some millions. But look at it, Nigerian market alone is consuming 50. Will you be able to meet us our need? Meanwhile, he has his target. And again, the questions we also ask is, are we going to be selling crude oil to him in naira? Because that's another issue.
That's another factor.
Exactly. So for now, I would say that one Dangote refinery won't be able to satisfy our consumption. Even the one that is going to be produced all through a month, Nigerian market can consume it alone, because we hold for we buy it, we keep it, and we use it for several of our activities. As I'm speaking to you now, there is no single Nigerian in every day that doesn't have a relationship with PMS.
Yes, absolutely.
Just like someone will say, there's no single Nigerian doesn't have a relationship with cassava, because everything that you take, it has an element of what? Cassava. That is how the PMS is to us.
Let's take a little bit. Let's take a break away from the refineries. We'll come back to that, and let's come back to the subsidy. How would you assess the impact of the official fuel price hike on Nigeria's economy and its various sectors?
To answer that question, let me first bring it to our listener here that there's good for us to establish a fact around what is happening within the economic sector. What are the indicator and indices of the present economy as we speak? Right now, we are struggling with 133 multidimensional poverty-driven Nigeria. That means we have 133 of our brothers and sisters that are into multidimensional That's one. Number two, we are struggling with an inflation of 22.44%. That means the high cost of things is in inflation is 22.44%. Thirdly, we are having an unemployment rate of 37%. Although there's a projection that is going to rise to 43 and by next year 47. Now, we also have a challenge in our crude oil production. The crude oil production is what gives Nigerian economy money. That is where Nigerian government raise revenue from. From 1.6 million barrels per day that we are producing, it has come down to 993,000 barrels per day. I'm just giving this indicator to know the challenges of where we are coming from before the fuel issue, especially high cost of food items. Currently, we are struggling with 19% of high cost of food. So, if we establish all these facts now we are now going to another season whereby, because of the increase in fuel prices, all these indicators I've mentioned, definitely what will happen to them? They are going to go up. The 133 million before the end of the year may end up becoming 160 million. The 19% high cost of food may end up becoming 22. The high cost of inflation that we are talking about, that 22.44%, may become 25%. By the time NBS will bring out inflation figure for the month of June, could be 25, it could be 27, and transportation too, the same thing. So all these indicators have shown that we are coming from, there's a trajectory that we are following. Now, before the end of this month of June, the trajectory figures will change. The data around them will change. That's so that the challenges of Nigerians will definitely go up. Today, a bus from Masaka to inside town is between 400 to 500. Before now, it was 300. On rush hour every Monday, it is 400. Now, a taxi cab from AYA to Pape within the same city center was 250 before. Now it is now 350. You can see the trajectory, the way they are going. Now, a cup of rice we normally buy 120. That means the milk cup 120, 130. Maybe before the end of Friday, before the weekend runs out, it could be 200. A mudu of rice that is selling for 1,200 naira as of yesterday, as of last week Friday, that is Nigerian rice, 1,200, the good one. Now, before the end of the month, it could be 2,000. A mudu of sugar is 1,400 naira as of yesterday. Before the end of the month, it's going to be increased 2,000 and thereby. So it's look at the way I'm giving indicators of some of these normal commodities that we are familiar with. With the increase in pump price of fuel, definitely each of these prices will definitely go up. I've not talked about photocopy. I did some photocopy yesterday. It was 13 naira, and they are telling me that before the end of the week it could be 15 naira per copy. Printing was 100 naira. They are saying that before the end of the month it could be 200 naira. You can see the and these are the things, the services
basic
that
everyday services.
that make use of the fuel, because there is no general electricity that is constant. So you can see how this is moving, and that is the hardship that everyone will definitely face. From little things that you have known to be so cheap, that are now becoming so high. Now, chewing gum, bubble gum that we normally pick for 20 naira, don't be surprised it could be 30 naira. I mean, talking of the pieces one that we normally pick, because I eat a lot of bubble gum just to keep my mouth busy because I talk a lot. So you can know how then the other items. So everything will definitely add 1%, 2% added to their current price before the end of the month. They we're going to have a new price.
That is going to lead me to my next question. How are there steps that Nigerians can take as individuals or as bodies to say effectively manage their budgets and navigate the or better still not navigate now mitigate the increased cost of transportation that is trickling down to every other thing.
Exactly. No, the thing is that we won't be able to run away. Nobody will be able to run away from it. It's a reality that we are going to confront. The only thing is that, okay, as a question, how are we going to transit from this one and be able to manage ourselves out? Number one, we must inform ourselves salary is not increasing. Even those of us that also here, it won't increase per se, except maybe by the miracles, in a sense that based on the agreement with but don't expect any increment of anything in terms of salary. Although government said 40% have been added to public servant and civil service salary, but private sectors, it could be a challenge for them. And people that are not even employed, that are self-employed, that means they have to double their hustle, be able to meet up some of their challenges. So number one thing is that, as you pointed, the budget of everybody. It's now time for us to cut down some excesses. You get it? For example, my humble self, my Monday to Friday is running around radio station talking, TV station talking here and there. Some of them have to just pity me. Some of them have to just I have to cut down some invitation.
Absolutely.
Sunday also, I also do a radio program on Sunday, so I have to cut down expenses around my movement so that I can manage where I'm going and where I need to be. Then two, you can't afford to eat. Definitely Nigerians can be used to 101, 102, 001, all those things, but we must eat, especially if you have kids in the house. We must buy this, but there's also need to cut down some expenses in that area. But major items of food, the spark, the noodles and the rest of them, you can't afford it, including bread. You can't afford it, so we must keep those ones. But the major ones that I know that most Nigerians have to cut their budget on is luxuries items. We can't. Luxury items include expensive wristwatch, expensive clothes, and the rest of them. But how can we get out of it? Because that is also part and parcel of what move and shape the economy. Because there are some people that depend on those aspects of the economy. So for me, majorly, we must be able to manage our luxury items, the way we put our money in luxury, especially luxury items that are not sustainable, that are something that when you buy today, tomorrow you discover there's a new trending of it. You just have to look at how you're going to cut it down.
So cutting down on trends.
Exactly, because that's the main thing. But we know many people will still want to show for that. Okay, luxury items, what that show, for those that are social media freak that normally use that to showcase their talent. Even some use those luxury items to market themselves on the social media. We know they have to work on it because the economy as it stands today is not smiling. So the only way out of what you have asked, the transition is that manageable aspect. We just have to manage ourselves.
I mean, you mentioned that there was an increment. The government made a 40% increment on worker salaries. So that would that mean that the minimum wage has been increased?
No, that's different. That's for just the federal government workers.
Just for federal government workers.
It doesn't include the state.
So now, what other measures should the government be putting in place to cushion the effect of this subsidy removal? Yes, we have agreed that this is good for the country, by and large, in the long run, this is good for the economy. But what can the government do to cushion the effect of this subsidy removal that is now affecting, causing an inflation of some sort?
Exactly. There's going to be immediate reaction in terms of what government needs to, which is the short-term action of the government, then long-term action of the government. On the short term, let me take the long term first. Most times that most of us will complain about the effect of this particular, especially on production and cost of items production, is energy, electricity per se. Because if there's no electricity, people depend on petroleum products, especially fuel, to power their, maybe your organization now they are making use of diesel if there's no light. So can we, on the long term, can we make sure that we have access to cheap energy, electricity, in terms of generation and transmission? If there's a lot of megawatts going to the city centers, going to the rural areas where we have factory, where we have businesses that are existing. Nobody will go and be buying PMS to be powering their pass my neighbor or pass my friend generator, or going to buy diesel, because there's constant electricity. That's the number one key aspect of what government can do in terms of the long term. How we can effectively ensure that Abuja, for example, as a federal capital, is enjoying maximum of not less than 18 hours electricity. Factory will operate. Nobody will go and be spending money buying PMS, buying diesel, or buying whatever other aspect to power their generating set or power their diesel or power plant. But when it is not there, they spend more money on cost of production, and that cost of production will definitely reflect in the cost of the item unit they are producing. Like your media house, for example, if you guys continue to run loss in terms of advert and the rest of it, you definitely want to do something. Definitely increase your advert rate or add one or two things. But as a result of what? Because you are spending money on energy, which means that you are spending money on diesel. But if there's 18 hours light on daily basis throughout the week, throughout the month, your management will not bother to buy diesel. Even if they buy, it will just be there for emergency use. But there's constant electricity light for 18 hours. The same thing apply to other sector of the economy, the manufacturing sector. Now, on the immediate one, like for people, Nigerians across board, although I am not a supporter of sharing handouts. I don't support government giving people money.
Like palliatives.
No, I don't support it. But there are other things that you can do to quickly reduce this effect. Number one, we have Nigerian Union of Road Transport Workers, the big buses that are existing. I'm not saying they should go and buy new buses, because we bought that in 2012. Today, nobody is looking. We can't even find any of those buses, those Shopee bus, those whatever. We can't find them on the road again. So, can you parley with existing NURT, Nigerian what they call it, Road Workers Association, and the rest of them, and see how you can engage them, whereby not giving them money, but making the energy stuff they need, the diesel, the PMS they need, to be more accessible for them. Not that they have to struggle all around to get it. If you do that, it also reduce their stress, and they could on their own reduce the fare they are charging. That's one. Then the state government must not just sit and be saying the federal government must do everything, because absolutely. I'm talking about the Abuja now, because we are in Abuja. What about state? It could also be implemented at the state level, that state governors should just not sit on the fence and say because they have increased fuel, then their people should suffer. They should also act, and when they are acting, they should not be going about sharing money or sharing. No, that's not what Nigerians need.